Hello, my name is Nicole D. Ford. D stands for Denise, that's my middle name, and my pronouns are she, her. Deciding to kind of hurry up and do this before I lose my nerve and hurry up and post it. I know Black History Month is not really starting for another week and a half, but I just really wanted to do this before I chickened out. I don't usually talk on social media every day, so I'm not a everyday YouTuber. Sometimes when I'm attending events, I might get on my Instagram stories, and I'm actually not active on TikTok at all. So forgive me, first of all, if I seem maybe a little bit nervous or out of sorts, if you hear my mouse clicking because I'm reading my notes. But I just wanted to do this before, like I said, I lose my nerve. So anyway, like I said, Black History Month doesn't actually start until February 1st. And today I've been working on this video submission that we've been asked to do and I volunteered to do in regards to what Black History Month means to me. And as I was going through the process, I was going through this whole thing of, I wrote kind of my notes out, which I'm looking at right now. And I had no idea out of the things that I said what was going to make the cut. I know there's times that I made mistakes and had bloopers, and there were times where I felt very rushed and cut some things out of what I wanted to say. And I just wasn't sure that because it was a video submission, what would actually make it in. And so I know that there were some things that I even want to say that I was like, maybe, no, I shouldn't say that because I don't want to offend non-Black people. Will it be something that I say that's not the norm for Black people? So then Black people come for me. Will I be criticized in general from anything I say from any group? And, there was nervous clicking of my mouse as I was flipping through my notes throughout the video. And then, the nerves came in of, can people tell I'm reading from my notes and does it make it less interesting or less authentic? And so I was going through all of these things. And once I clicked submit for my video submission, I realized that I don't have to worry about any of those things because I do actually have a YouTube channel that I sometimes use to document and chronicle things that are going on in my life. And I don't normally get on YouTube and talk like this, but I realized, hey, I have this platform and I can use YouTube to say actually what I want to say without worrying about being edited. So I don't have to wait for anybody to tell my story. I can tell my own story. So here it goes. So in the video submission, my screen is over on the right-hand side where I can see myself. So if you see me looking over, I'm just making sure, I don't look crazy or tears running down my eyes or anything like that. But in the video submission, the question was, what is the most inspirational story you have during Black History Month? And my first thought was, okay, I need to say some of the traditional things. Like I need to talk about Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, or Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, Ida B. Wells, and so many prominent figures in Black history. And then I thought, well, that's kind of inauthentic of me to talk about those things because even though they're part of history that I've learned, they're not part of my daily experience. And so then I thought about, okay, what about current heroes or current people that inspire me? So I thought about Michelle Obama, Oprah, Iyanla Vanzant, Michael Bernard Beckwith, who is actually the Reverend at Agape International Spiritual Center in Los Angeles, who I follow, or Issa Rae, the creator of Insecure, Ava DuVernay, who made Selma and other great documentaries. And I thought, okay, but that's not 100% authentic either, because I know I started watching Michelle Obama's Becoming documentary on Netflix, and I never finished it, nor did I finish the book. So these people inspire me, but they're also not part of my daily existence and my daily living. And so I really thought, okay, if I'm going to tell the truth about Black History Month, let me first start with Black history is not a month for me. Okay, I understand the importance of celebrating Black History Month and why it was created, and I do think it's important month for people to learn history and to reflect on things that have happened in history. But my existence every day as a Black woman is Black history, and so I thought, okay, the most inspirational story at this moment in time that I can think of is actually my own story. And I know that sounds maybe narcissistic or self serving, but if I'm going to be authentic and tell the truth, that would be the truth. What a lot of people don't see in me or understand that I've historically had very low self esteem in certain areas of my life, especially, in my appearance and things of that nature, and even in my competence, my intelligence, and all of those things. And it has been a journey for me through all of my life's ups and downs, from the different things that I've gone through in life, to actually learn to just celebrate myself in my perfectly imperfect self and way. And so here I am, bloopers and all, kind of here to tell my unique story, who I am, why my story is inspirational to me for Black History Month. And, I also don't have kids. My family is spread out throughout the country. We live our own separate lives. I don't have family that I'm close to here in Las Vegas. I'm introverted, so that's okay. And so a lot of my passion and a lot of the things that I talk about usually surrounds whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm involved in at the moment, whether it be work, friends, or grassroots community engagement. So with that being said, for this inspirational story, and what I wanted to tell is a little bit about myself and how it relates to Black history, how I'm making a difference in people's lives in my work and in the community, my accomplishments, my achievements. And, I like just sharing who I've become as a Black woman against all odds and all the things that I've overcome. So, like I said, Black history is not a month for me. It's my everyday living and life as a Black woman. While I'm definitely Blackity Black and very much down for Black people, I do have a unique perspective of growing up not only with a strong Black family, and lots of Black friends, but growing up in the Bay Area and living in California most of my life, I've also had a lot of white friends and friends from all different identities, races, nationalities, and ethnicities. And so during college at UC Berkeley back in the 90s, I was most interested in anthropology and African American studies classes, reading the works of people like W.B. Du Bois, Frederick Douglass, Frantz Fanon, Martin Luther King Jr., James Baldwin, Maya Angelou, the autobiography of Malcolm X. And I really wanted to major in either anthropology or African American studies, or at least get a minor in it. And of course, my mom was like, no way, you're not going to get a job with that on your resume. And probably at the state of affairs at that time, that's probably true. And so I looked in the newspaper and I saw all these accounts payable jobs. And so I said, okay, I'm interested in money and business. So I went to the Haas School of Business and applied there, got in, and ultimately majored in business administration with an emphasis in finance and accounting. Also, what happened my freshman year in college is my father was brutally murdered, and I needed a job. I needed to know how to sustain myself because he was no longer around to help sustain me. And of course, that was a tragic loss for me. So anyway, I was recruited by all the big six at the time. I don't know how many there are now, accounting firms. And I ultimately chose Price Waterhouse because they were the ballot counters for the Oscars. They're now known as PwC because they merged with Coopers and Lybrand. And I was always hugely interested in entertainment and the entertainment industry. And they had clients like Disney and Sony Pictures, Sony Music, Universal Pictures, Universal Music. Like, they were huge in the entertainment industry. And I thought, well, what better way to take my business degree and knowledge in accounting and finance and apply that to an industry that I'm currently interested in, or I was at the time. So a lot of my reading and education was really around reading Entertainment Weekly, memorizing who all the celebrities were, The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Billboard, and reading books like All You Need to Know About the Music Industry. So there was a point in time in my life as my career culminated in me becoming the senior vice president and chief financial officer of a music publishing company in Beverly Hills, which I did for 5 years. At the young age of between 31 and 35, I was at what I felt was the top of my game. And I felt a sense of, is this it? And I knew that I wanted to have kids. I was married at the time, and I really wanted to settle down and live a totally different life. I wanted to explore all the things that I never explored fully as a child. And so some may call it a midlife crisis, but basically in the mid 2000s, in 2005, I quit my corporate career. I left my CFO job and I moved to Las Vegas with the hopes of living a different life. And it turns out when I moved to Las Vegas, I ended up getting a divorce. I didn't have any kids. And actually, I went and worked in consulting in finance and accounting for another 3 years at Diamond Resorts before I finally decided to quit. So it was definitely a challenge and a transition for me. But around 2009, 2010, I finally took a sabbatical from corporate. I started getting really involved in music, dance, culture, and the performing arts. And really, a lot of my emphasis was on percussion and singing. I'm just going to look right here to check and make sure my eyes aren't watering or my face is not too sweaty. And so anyway, I took a foray into percussion, singing, mostly a lot of dance and culture. And, that had me in situations where I was drumming with the Burning Man hippies. I was doing African drum and dance, Afro-Cuban drum and Cuban rumbas. I was into salsa and salsa dancing and learning kizomba, cumbia. I wasn't heavily involved in that, but I was definitely in that lifestyle and took classes in that area. Brazilian percussion, Middle Eastern and North African percussion. There was also a show that I was in called Tribal Night, which also had taiko, Japanese drumming, Hawaiian cultural drumming, indigenous flute. I mean, many different cultural expressions that I was involved in. And I was also involved in a show called Unity in the Community. And one of the signature songs of the show was Unity Between Colors and Harmony Between Tribes. So having said that, from about 2010 to about 2017 or so, I was very involved in culture and in drumming and singing. And, again, in my life, have met all kinds of people from all different ethnicities, races, everything. And so then around 2018, I started getting involved in being an event planner and produced and organized shows with a team of people. So it wasn't just me, but a show called One Night in Brazil, A Touch of Africa in Las Vegas, a Kwanzaa celebration in association with KCEP Power 88, which actually shout out to my friend Ifaomi, who did most of the heavy lifting on that particular event. We produced Pan-African Soul Sessions, and we also produced drum circles in Town Square. And drum circles unite people of all races, cultures, and identities, and all come together with their different drums united in one beat. So you'll see African djembes, you'll see congas, you'll see doumbeks, you'll see all kinds of different drums. And like I said, we're all united in one beat. I don't want to say that it's colorblind, because I know that that's not the right thing to say and not the way to see the world. But in some ways, in the drum circle culture, you do kind of come and you do kind of just play, and you play with anybody who shows up. At least that's my experience of drum circles. I know there's drum circle politics and things like that I can't get into. But from my experience, we were all united in one beat. So anyway, Black History Month in the late 2010 through 2000, I would say 18, 19, 20, even now, actually, most of the time I was spending time going to schools, being in shows and celebrations, and community events, especially around Black History Month, for African drumming, dance, and sharing culture and traditions with the audience. I don't do that as much today, but I get just as many inquiries now for actually hiring people for Black History Month to do those kind of performances. And I share those with all the groups that I know here in Las Vegas who can and still do those performances. I'm not as involved or interested in being a musician as I was passionate about it in the last decade. I've found my passion in other areas, but I still pull out my instruments from time to time. I was just in a show in July, a tribute show for the loss of my ex-boyfriend who passed away. And so I'm not as passionate as I was about drumming, but I'm still kind of involved in the community. So anyway, during the time that I was heavy into performing and being involved in culture, I also had more time on my hands, and I started watching things on YouTube. I got introduced to a film called Hidden Colors, and from that, it just kind of exploded my mind on all the different things that were available to be learned on the internet that I never learned in school. So I call that my real education, because during this 10-year musical sabbatical, I spent a lot of time watching documentaries and learning about the truths of slavery, colonialism, and imperialism. And excuse me one moment, I just need to take a sip of my big ash drink, which is actually just LaCroix water. All right, so anyway, like I said, learning about the truths of slavery, colonialism, and imperialism, not just American slavery, not just Jim Crow, mass incarceration, and the school to prison pipeline, but documentaries about the atrocities that Black, Brown, and Indigenous people have faced worldwide. And I'm just going to name a few off that come to mind off the top of my head. King Leopold, you should read, or not read, you could read about it, but it's much more telling to actually watch the documentaries on YouTube about what Belgium and him did in the Congo. I mean, they actually chopped off the limbs of the African people there. US and European manipulation of politics and funding of Africa, and manipulating funding of Africa, inciting tribalism and wars while extracting all the resources from the continent of Africa. There's another movie called Goodbye Uncle Tom, which I don't even know how to describe it, but it just really changed my mind about a lot of things. The German genocide of the Herero and Namaqua people of Namibia, which is also in Africa and was a practice of the Holocaust. And I'm not going to speak on that because I cannot, but I know that it happened before what we know is the Jewish Holocaust. And so anyway, the inequality and apartheid in South Africa, Robert Mugabe's attempts to free Zimbabwe, poverty and slums of Brazil, the treatment of the Tasmanians and Aborigines in Australia, how the US and France made and continue to make Haiti poor, colorism and anti-Blackness that exists in almost all cultures and caste systems that have been affected by white domination. Don't mean to be offensive, but those caste systems that put the darkest skinned people on the bottom. Black children being depicted as alligator bait here in the United States. How Black people have been portrayed in the entertainment and media throughout history and caricatured into stereotypes. The racist origins of many nursery rhymes and minstrel songs. I'll just say Google 10 Little Indians and you'll learn more. The list goes on. I've also spent a ton of time learning from Black scholars like Professor James Smalls, John Henrik Clark, Amos Wilson. I mean, thank God for the internet and all these things that have now been archived on YouTube and allowed me to learn things that I never learned in school and I never even heard of before. And, you know, while I spent a lot of time doing that, it also made me angry, but it helped me also get a better understanding of why Black, Brown, and Indigenous people are in the conditions we're in worldwide. And excuse me, by the way, my family lineage also includes being part of the Cherokee and Kaw Nation, but it's not something that I learned about growing up. I don't practice any of the traditions, but I have an affinity for the fact that that's also in my lineage. So anyway, with that being said, when you ask about Black History Month, I want to say who I am in this moment in Black history and how I'm celebrating and making Black history every day. While a lot of my current focus has been on Black people and the Black community, I recently heard someone say a rising tide lifts all boats. And because of my understanding of what it feels like to be treated unfairly and be part of a marginalized community, I also know that the work that I do in the Black community and with our Black and EASTRIDGE ERG has an impact on all of the other ERGs. And not only that, I like to attend our ERG meetings because I like to hear and learn people's unique stories and perspectives. For example, at the beginning of this video, I announced myself as she, her, or my pronouns are she, her. I had no idea that that was something that was important to the LGBTQ community to demonstrate that I'm safe. I didn't know that. And by attending our ERG group meetings and learning from different people, it really helps to open my heart and to be empathetic and build relationships. Recently, the Club Q shooting in the latter part of 2022, I know I saw it on the news, but I didn't really think about how the impact was until I attended the LGBTQ ERG meeting and heard everyone speaking and showing how and telling how they felt. And it's probably no different than the Buffalo shooting that happened recently, in that sometimes when it's not in your scope of awareness, you may not necessarily be thinking as much about it. Your heart is open and you feel bad, but until you actually meet people and hear their personal stories and hear their perspectives, I think it just makes a huge difference in terms of building relationships, negating stereotypes, and just listening to everyone's vulnerability. Your heart becomes more open. Recently I was in the AAPI meeting and they talked about microaggressions and stereotypes and Asian hate. And they've played a video, a TED Talk of a woman talking about stereotypes. And I thought, wow, I never really thought a lot about that, but I can totally relate being a Black woman. I mean, not relate exactly to the experience, but I can relate to, or I can empathize, I guess would be the best way to put it. So anyway, with that being said, I love the work that I do, and I love the people we're around, and the culture that is created that allows us to meet each other where we are and to share our unique stories. It's not something that we do 24 hours a day. Of course, we work hard and we make things happen, but I love that this is something that I'm passionate about, and that I get to do that as part of my job. Like, nobody says your pay is going to be docked because you attended an ERG group meeting. So anyway, the other things that I love about what I'm doing now currently in my life is that I get to foster diversity, equity, and inclusion and anti-racism in a real tangible way, both in my job as well as in the staffing industry. I currently serve on the Employee Advisory Board. I support the leadership of Black at EASTRIDGE and help guide them and provide whatever operational support I can to them. I get to work with our diverse teams within the company that include marketing, recruiting, human resources, just all different types of, and our leadership as well, on DEI and inclusivity and making sure that everyone is well represented. I also participate on the DE&I task force. I just joined the American Staffing Association IDEA Council, which stands for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advocacy. And I look forward to the changes that we'll be able to make in the staffing industry and whatever influence I may be able to have being in that group. I'm excited about Bill McClellan, our EASTRIDGE board member, being our guest speaker in our February Black at EASTRIDGE allyship meeting. We got the chance to meet him the other day, and just love who he is, love his story, love to amplify his voice as well as Black voices, and just also expose people to to senior leadership and what it looks like to be a senior leader and an executive and be Black. I think, I'm just really I'm excited about who he is and his career story and his life story, just as a person, the Black part notwithstanding, but being a Black person, I'm also very proud to present him to the company and have him talk to our employee owners about what it means to be on the board and how he serves in his advisory role. I'm also expanding my LinkedIn network. What I love about LinkedIn is there's a lot of professionals on LinkedIn, and I've been able to connect and follow a lot of different voices on LinkedIn, especially Black voices, but not just Black voices. I'm learning from, a connection I just made the other day was a Korean American who had posted that it's Korean American Day, but she also has cerebral palsy, which I guess fits in the disabled categories, how she described it. So just being able to learn from different people and different groups and their experiences. I love being able to connect with and follow different voices on LinkedIn and basically make LinkedIn much more, much less homogenous, I guess is what I want to say, and just learning things from their perspective. And I'm also working with the company to improve representation across all levels of the organization. And I hope through my work with the IDEA Council at the American Staffing Association that I can have that kind of influence in the staffing industry at large. So with that being said, and speaking of influence and leadership, I don't know that I specifically spoke about leadership, but that's what's in my notes. So that's what I'm going to talk about next. I want to give a shout out to Laura Lamana, who is the Chief of Staff here at EASTRIDGE. She has been a great sponsor for me, as well as a mentor and a friend. We go through our ups and downs, but she has been a friend. And she recently shared with me that I'm at the stage that, in her observation, I'm at the stage of my career that is that of a leader and a person of influence. And even though I have been a leader, I've managed people. I was even senior vice president and chief financial officer of a company in my former corporate career. I've been a leader, I've been a manager, I've been all these things, but I never really thought about how my leadership here at EASTRIDGE is completely different. At EASTRIDGE, this is the first place that I've ever been in where I felt comfortable being authentically myself as a Black woman. I still have a ways to go because I don't think I've probably said everything that I want to say, but this is the first place that I've ever been that I feel like, I can really challenge some people on some things. And it's really been kind of amazing how accepting people have been of the things that I have had to say or the things that I have said, and that people actually listen to my ideas. Because before, being in accounting, yes, I had ideas and yes, I implemented them, but they had a lot to do with like financial modeling and Excel spreadsheets and financial reports. And, there may be some times where we talked about the people part of the business, but it wasn't as heavy of an emphasis. I mean, you still had people that you had to work with, and there were conversations like at Universal Pictures, if we put this movie out and we have this kind of advertising spend and we spend it in this area, how's it going to affect the box office? But a lot of it was very numbers driven, and nothing wrong with that because numbers are important. But I feel like my leadership here at EASTRIDGE is different in the sense that it's much more about the culture and how I can influence the culture and how I can help to ensure that our policies and procedures are inclusive and uplift and empower those from underrepresented groups and all employees in general. I'm often pounding the table for DE&I to anyone who will listen, including leadership. And surprisingly, like I said, I've been very thrilled to see that a lot of my ideas are embraced, and I'm excited about that. And so with that being said, what I also wanted to talk about is that, just one second, let me just get a sip of my drink. because I'm probably not going to edit this. I'm too lazy. Shout out to the marketing team who edits videos all the time. I just don't care. Anyway, so with that being said, in my role in leadership, even though I don't have direct reports, I do feel that I am a person of influence here in a different way than my previous leadership roles, and I enjoy it. It's something that I'm very passionate about. So what I have here in my notes next is to talk about the quote, seek first to understand and then to be understood, which is one of the first books that Price Waterhouse, now PwC, recommended that we read fresh out of college. And the reason why I bring up that quote, it's from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I bring up that quote because when I talk about other underrepresented groups, I also do or am interested in what makes people from the dominant group tick. I want to understand them because I also want to be understood. So what I want to talk about now is what's on my reading list. It's not necessarily for Black History Month. It's just what I happen to be interested in right now. You know, my life goes up and down, and I change from, spiritual and self-help books to you name it. I could be reading about something else tomorrow. But what I'm interested in right now is these following books that I want to mention. Okay, and LaCroix water. It's making me feel like I have to burp. All right. So anyway, my first book that I want to mention, you can't see it because the virtual background. I'm going in and out of the virtual background. Anyway, there we go. It's called Leading at a Higher Level. And there's also 2 other books, one that I put on order called Helping People Win at Work, a business philosophy called Don't Mark My Paper, Help Me Get an A. I just finished listening to The 1 Minute Manager. Now, these are all things that have been mentioned by our CEO, Seth Stein. And so I want to know what makes Seth Stein tick. I want to understand him. I want to know what's going to make me a better leader at my company. I want to know, as a Black woman, what's important to leadership. And I want to understand. The point in understanding is that I also want to be understood. So maybe I'm delusional, but I feel like maybe if I learn the language of leadership and seek to understand, then maybe I too will also learn to speak their language and be understood. So those are the books that I'm actually, I kind of flip back and forth between a lot of different books, but those are on my reading list. And like I said, I listened to the new 1 Minute Manager, and I really loved what Ken Blanchard talked about in that audiobook that I listened to, which also inspired me to get the other 2 books, because I thought, wow, that's really cool what he's talking about. And it's something that I can implement in my own leadership style. So speaking of other books, I was going to try to show them on the screen, but I can see that it's messing up my virtual background, so I won't show the books. I will just read them off of my list. So another book that's on my list is DE&I, Deconstructed, Your No-Nonsense Guide to Doing the Work and Doing It Right. The author's name is Lily Zhang, I think, and I apologize if I brutalized the pronunciation. And this person goes by they, them. And it's interesting to learn D&I from a perspective that is different from mine. I'm also just finished reading The Waymakers, Clearing the Path to Workplace Equity. And I can see my ponytails not coming through my virtual background. It's messing up my mojo. Anyway, The Waymakers, Clearing the Path to Workplace Equity with Competence and Confidence by Tara J. Frank. She's actually a Black author, but she does speak on behalf of her research with Black, Brown, and Indigenous employees, as well as others from underrepresented groups from all the years that she's done working and consulting in DE&I. I also read a book called I'm Not Yelling, A Black Woman's Guide to Navigating the Workplace. And if I can, I want to show you that book. So let me see if I can. Hold on one second. Oh, come on. There we go. You see all these, oh shoot. You see all these tabs I have here? The Bible. The Bible. There's so many. Okay, so Black women, Black people are not a monolith. We all have our different thoughts and opinions. But if I could take any book and say, this really resonates with me as a Black woman, this book did it. I mean, the one line that really made me laugh out loud is when she said, "If pearl earrings can be professional, so can my gold hoop earrings." So I wore these earrings on purpose. I don't normally wear them at work, but I just want to counter the idea or narrative that a certain look or style has to be considered professional. And I'm thankful that here in the company that I work with, that I come to work in my different dashikis every day. No one says anything about my earrings or my hairstyle. It's accepted, and I love that I can be comfortable in the workplace. Also on my reading list is the Anti-Racist Organization, Dismantling Systemic Racism in the Workplace by Shireen Daniels. Also on my reading list for an audiobook is called Shared Sisterhood, How to Take Collective Action for Racial and Gender Equity at Work by Tina Opie and Beth Livingston. They're actually one Black and one white woman who talk about working together and the experiences between Black and white women and other groups, and how you can actually work together and understand each other and express empathy. They have a concept called dig, bridge, and I haven't got to the other one yet, but I'm very interested in their work. I also follow, like I said, a very diverse group of thinkers on LinkedIn. I love reading and learning more from their content. And there's also a lot of professional Black voices on LinkedIn that I follow. In terms of other things on my reading list, a book that's pending release is The Inclusive Organization, Real Solutions, Impactful Change, and Meaningful Diversity. And I believe the author's name is Netta Jenkins. So I'm looking forward to that when it comes out. And I'm also subscribed to a lot of newsletters, articles, McKinsey studies, and different reports on underrepresented groups, DE&I, anti-racist topics, especially as it relates to the workplace, because that's what I'm interested in right now. So anyway, what I'm watching, let's start with what I'm not watching. Okay, hold on, let me get a sip. Again, this is LaCroix. The flavor is lemon. No, the flavor is lime. Anyway, so I'm not drunk. I actually went to rehab when I was 18 or 19 years old and have been clean and sober since that time, although I have had challenges with a lot of different alcoholisms like shopping, some gambling, workaholism, and those kinds of things. But I've found that in the last couple of years, I've really overcome most of those things, although I still have challenges with food. I love food. Oh, yeah, and I smoke cigarettes. Okay. But anyway, it's not alcohol is my point. So what I'm not watching, I hate slave movies. I kind of always have. I think, watch Roots when I was a kid, and I just hated the whole scene where, they try to make Kunta Kinte change his name to Toby, and they whipped him. Like, even right now, as I describe it, I can feel like pain in my back. Like, I do not like seeing Black people being tortured or whipped. It just makes me feel helpless. It makes me feel angry. It's traumatic and traumatizing. I never finished Amistad. I never watched 12 Years a Slave. I never watched Birth of a Nation, the Nat Turner version. I did watch the original Birth of a Nation, which helped form the Ku Klux Klan, I believe. I didn't watch the Harriet Tubman movie. In general, I don't like movies that include any kind of violence or torture, although there are a lot of violent movies that I have watched that include scenes that I cover my eyes or turn my eyes away and don't look. But especially slave movies, I'm just not for it. So I'm not watching Emancipation, but I did watch Django. And I'm going to be honest, I watched Django because I don't remember how the story ended, but I believe Jamie Foxx retaliated and maybe killed a white guy or a slave master or something like that. I don't know. I did watch Django, but in general, slave movies are not my jam. So for the moment, where I'm at is I like Black joy and things that make me feel good, make me laugh, educate. I like things that show that we have different stories and different opinions and unique perspectives within our own group, and that do it in a funny and educational way. So, again, Black people are not a monolith, and a lot of us have differing opinions. But at the moment, I'm enjoying on season 4 of Blackish. I have not watched Mixed-ish or Grownish, and I'm not sure that I'm even going to watch that. But at the moment, Blackish, I'm enjoying. The Best Man Holiday and the Best Man final chapters I just watched over the holidays. Loved it, enjoyed it. Love seeing professional Black people. I don't like seeing, ratchet. I mean, I'll watch it on occasion if I feel like getting involved in some drama, but I really don't love seeing, I just don't love seeing the worst of Black people. And so I enjoyed The Best Man because I felt like it was positive and uplifting. Occasionally, I'll watch the Boondocks cartoon. It used to be on Adult Swim, but I don't think it's airing anymore. I don't know. I don't have cable. But I can usually find a cartoon on YouTube to make me laugh. And beyond Black Joy, I just watched a documentary called Deconstructing Karen, which I thought was very interesting. And I also read the author's book about, or not the authors, but the people who put Deconstructing Karen together, which I think is like a Regina Jackson or Regina King. I can't remember the last name, and another woman whose name I can't pronounce, so I won't try to butcher it. But they also wrote a book called White Women. That was very interesting. And then just some Black media and YouTubers talking about things like reparations for Black people and other things impacting the Black community. There's different channels that I occasionally watch on YouTube. I just recently saw a documentary put on by Revolt TV, which is supposedly Black-owned media, but I'm not sure if they get funding from other media that's not Black-owned. But I know Puffy or P. Diddy or whatever he's calling himself these days is involved in Revolt TV. And they just did a documentary on the water crisis, not just in Flint and Mississippi, but in many Black communities. So I found that interesting. And then I was just introduced recently in one of our ERG groups, the AAPI group. They talked about, or Song Lee actually, who runs the AAPI group. Looking at my ponytail. Anyway, he told me about a show called Fresh Off the Boat. And so I just started watching that. And that show is hilarious, because we talked about just normal family, and it's just interesting to learn about some of the things in their culture through comedy. I think that could be a medium to educate just as much as any other medium. And to me, it's just ironic that the young boy who comes from, I believe, a Taiwanese family, and they were growing up in the 90s, and he was a huge rap and hip hop fan. And so it's just kind of funny to see his perspective of life versus the more traditional perspective of the Asian community. And I hope I said that in a right and respectful way, because that's my intention, but call me out if I didn't. And so they also, in the AAPI group, recommended Crazy Rich Asians and the Joy Luck Club. And so those are things that I have on my watch list. And then in the LGBTQ group, they also mentioned or gave us a list of the top 20 LGBTQ inclusive films and shows of 2022. So I also have that bookmarked and plan on watching those. So anyway, I know I said that that's my story, but that's not really my whole story. You can really get a lot of my whole story if you look at, let me see, I'm trying to point to where it is. If you look right here, where it's my website, www.NicoleDFord.com. And a lot of my stories there's a lot of pictures, there's a lot of videos, there's a lot of things that kind of tell the story of my life. I haven't updated it in a while, so some things might be old and dated, but it's kind of a labor of love. It's not a professional website. It's just something that I built while I was a broke artist and don't want to let it go, because it's kind of like, my story. And so, I don't want somebody else to come in and say, oh, you should take this out, or, oh, why do you have all these pictures here? It's like I have all these pictures here because I have pride in my story and who I am and who my family is and all the things that I've done. And so, you know, anyway, I know I talked about celebrating myself, and so, that's part of it. So anyway, if you want to learn more of my story, you can go to my website. So anyway, that's my spiel about Black History Month, and that's why I couldn't get it all down for the people asking for the video submission. I want to summarize to say that I will continue to do the work I'm called to do, grow how my ancestors in the universe call me to grow. I will continue to grow in my courage and use my voice to impact change. I'm very surprised at how people are so open and receptive to listening. And now it's time for us to work together to take more action. Black History Month, no, not Black History Month. Scratch that. Black History is about me making a difference in the lives of Black people, others from historically marginalized groups, and all people. Black History is about forming relationships with allies and to help them use their power to make that difference. Here in my company, in the work I do every day, I get to align all of my original interests that I had in college: people, culture, business, race, and it provides me with enrichment and fulfillment in my current career. Every day I get to make a difference in people's lives by working on projects that ultimately help give everyone jobs and provide economic sustainability for all our communities. And that work is important. All the years that I spent being an artist and educating myself, I wasn't financially successful and self-sustaining. It is difficult to be in a very niche form of percussion unless somebody like Beyonce picks you up for a video or decides, oh, I'm going to have an all-female band. That's one slot for one person. And I'm not even saying that I was good enough to be that. I'm just saying that what I was doing was very niche and wasn't financially sustainable. And so what I like about the work that I do now is that I am financially sustained and I am able to make a living and help other people make a living as well. And anyway, going back to my career and my summary, the more seen, heard, and understood I feel as a Black woman, and the more I see my work on behalf of Black people as making a difference in our community, the more I feel I can use my voice to advocate for all historically marginalized people and all people in general. Not in the all lives matter kind of way, because Black lives do matter. But, I am a Black woman and I do prioritize Blackness. But it's in the sense that, like I said, a rising tide lifts all boats. And at the end of the day, we all just want to be heard, loved, accepted, and understood as human beings, no matter what our color is. But I never forget the Black part. The more seen and heard I feel as a Black woman, the more I seek to hear and understand the stories and perspectives of others and learn the steps I can take to make a difference for everyone. There's still more to come in the Nicole D. Ford story as I continue to make history. For me, Black history is not a month, it's a lifestyle. And I stole that from the previous entrepreneurial endeavor I had with Juneteenth 365. And thank you all for coming to my TED Talk. Now enjoy this little slideshow I put together, my history and pictures. If you don't want to watch a slideshow, just hit up my website. They're all there. All right. Thank you. Peace and blessings. And happy Black History Month, which is all year round, every year, every day. I live and breathe it. You should too. Peace out.